Alright, it is recording. So, there it is.
We're
Right
live.
there. So,
I learned that they actually did that. I'm pretty sure they did that in all movies and stuff because, like, when they snapped it, then they would have a video and audio cue to sync up
yeah.
when they're recording.
And it's
when they're
funny.
editing.
I never used to know that. I always just thought that was like a traditional thing,
Yeah, me
like
too.
no practical use. But once I started editing, I was like, I actually used to do that to sync up audio and
Yeah,
video.
because you would see like the huge spike in the audio, right?
Yeah.
And you'd be like, and then you could see it in the video too, and then just
Yeah. And they were like numbered too. I don't know if you noticed that. But anyways, Chris, do you wanna update our channel viewers on kind of like what the heck is going on here?
Hello, channel viewers.
Yeah.
So, this is my old room. You might recognize the posters on the ceiling or on the wall near the ceiling.
Ghibli.
Ghibli, yep, Studio Ghibli pictures. But this was the room I was sleeping in, but we just had a lot of changes happen in the place where I'm living. And so we basically I inherited two rooms, so I have two rooms in the house now, and they're both right next to each other. They're both very small. And so this room, which was my bedroom, I'm converting into like an office slash hangout slash lounge slash like gaming movie kind of space slash podcast space.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what's going on with this room. And so last night I was up a little bit late, messing around with different ideas and moving stuff around in here, and then moving my bedroom stuff into the slightly larger room that's right next to us. So
Yeah.
so now we're sitting here in
Armchairs.
Armchairs.
We are finally true to the channel name.
Yes, we heard your feedback in our comments section.
Yeah.
Lovely viewers, and now
Yeah.
we have Armchairs.
And by the way, to you, whoever's name was Joshua in the comments section, now you can
Yeah.
eat your words because.
Well, he said he doesn't like it because we're not brothers. Like, what even is that? Who are you?
Oh yeah, I mean, like, get out of our channel.
I'm glad we got to sort that out.
Yeah, we've upgraded from crisscross applesauce on the bed to Armchairs, so I think that's a really,
We're coming up fast.
But no, it's great. This is really like nice, very sophisticated feeling. I love it.
I got this armchair. I've had this armchair for years, and I got this armchair for $40 from a thrift shop,
Yeah,
which is a steal. It's a nice chair.
yeah.
Will's enjoying it.
I could not have. I cannot spend money that efficiently. $40 for me would be like a Domino's pizza, not even like cheesy crust.
This is what happens when you visit thrift shops regularly. You learn who has the good stuff, when, and where, and you go there and you just kind of walk around, not expecting to buy anything. And when you find something, you get it.
Yeah,
That's why thrifting is a hobby of mine.
yeah, definitely have to up my game in that regard. Was this shirt also a thrifted shirt?
I rarely buy clothes new, but that actually was a thrift I bought
Yeah,
because I used to wear it for work, and I wanted to get some actual nice shirts for work.
yeah. Chris also gifted me this shirt before the podcast, which is nice because it makes me feel very doctorial.
That's right. We're both very professional.
Yeah.
We're gonna go to church after this.
Yeah, yeah. So, but do you want to get started on kind of what we were
Sure.
with the
So
video?
it's been 2 weeks since we recorded
so, yeah,
the first
2 weeks.
episode. And so we were talking about what to do for the next episode, and Will had a few ideas. He had videos he was sending me. Will's had some interesting things that he's been up to. I don't know if you want to talk about that, but in Will telling me some about the stuff that he's been up to and the things he's been just reading about and looking into more and talking with people about, it made me think of like arguments for the existence of God, which is something that we talked about in the first episode. And it made me think of something that I haven't visited in a long time, which is Thomas Aquinas' 5 ways or 5 proofs for the existence of God. So I told Will about that. It rang a bell for him. And so then I sent him a video about it from the Thomistic Institute. Shout out Thomistic Institute. Thomas, or I think it's Aquinas 101 is their website or something.
Yeah.
But the video is from the Thomistic Institute.
We'll put a splash maybe edit of like their channel name.
Sure.
Yeah.
In the description.
Or yeah, that works.
Maybe I shouldn't have mentioned them.
It is what it is. It's too late now.
You
We're
can just
keeping it in.
bleep my voice out
Okay, I'll bleep it.
if you want to.
What, for the channel plug?
But yeah, and so anyway, so we watched that video. It's just like a short introduction to the 5 ways of Thomas Aquinas. I read a little bit from the actual text of the Summa Theologica of his 5 ways, which was really interesting actually. I really wish I had spent more time with that to prepare for this, but it's been a crazy week, as you can imagine, with all the moving. And so yeah, we're going to be talking about Thomas Aquinas' 5 ways. We'll have a lot of notes, which I'm really excited to hear about. I did not take any notes. I just kind of have background knowledge and experience of debates and discussions about them.
Yeah, well, I was really so first of all, I'll just say this because we kind of were talking about this. I think I brought it up when like before this whole thing, but I had a conversation with someone before you even brought up Thomas Aquinas and the 5 ways, and I thought I recalled him saying something about Thomas Aquinas believing that the universe was eternal, that he believed it was eternal. That's not true. He said, so I did some more investigation into that, and apparently he said that it was like an Aristotelian kind of way of thinking that this whole, like, everything kind of already existed, but Aquinas didn't believe that, but he also didn't think that it was impossible.
Oh, okay, I see.
And so that was the distinction that I wasn't making when I first brought it up. But I just thought that was interesting. So he said...
Well, it sounded like he heard somewhere that Aquinas argued that the universe was infinite, or that it was eternal, and I was like, I don't know that for a fact, but I would have a hard time believing that he said that.
Yeah, which I would too, which, I mean, I think it's interesting. I'll just make this quick point before I get into the notes, but I do think it's interesting that he says that it's not impossible, because he also apparently stated that, and this was in the Summa, was it Summa Theologia?
Please don't make fun of us. I think it's Summa Theologica.
Theologica, okay. So, well, yeah, you get the idea.
Which means Summary of Theology
in
Latin. It's his like magnum opus, like big tome. Theology.
So he said in that book somewhere, and this is my rough recollection of an excerpt, but that if God wanted to, that he could have created an eternal universe, which I thought was interesting. I don't think I have the like intellectual ability yet to imagine how that could work, because that to me seems like there's kind of an infinite regress issue there. Like, I don't see how you could create something that has already been eternal, since eternal is not really like a boxable thing.
Yeah.
It's just kind of something that is continuously.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how that fits into it, but I'm sure that there's some reasoning, or maybe like deeper rationality gets into about that. I just know the excerpt that I saw. I
would love to look more into that. I don't know the excerpt you're talking about.
Yeah, so anyways, back to the 5 ways, which is the main thing here. So it started off, at least in the video. So everything that we're going to be talking about, I think, is going to be mostly coming from the video that we watched.
Sure.
About.
Yeah.
So
I really wish I could have pulled up and like had the original text of the 5 ways here with us.
Oh, I have it written down.
Like the original, like Thomas Aquinas' actual words of the 5 ways.
Well, not like a direct quote.
Yeah.
I see what you mean, though. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have what's which is probably overly simplified summation of it in the video, but so the video starts off with getting into, I guess, Thomas's like philosophy behind why he's even creating these 5 ways, and kind of just, I guess, how he thinks of life and evidence for God. They pulled up I think it was 2 passages. It was Romans chapter 1, verse 20, and I think it kicks off with the statement that everyone knows that God exists because he is perceived by all his creation. He has been perceived by all his creation. And I thought that was interesting because, and then it elaborates further into this.
I'm listening. I think I have a Bible right here, actually. I can grab
that would be great. I think this passage from Romans actually, I think, comes from, at least what I have written down here, a longer passage in the Book of Wisdom, chapter 13, verses 1 through 9. And that gets into really just describing how everything around us is intrinsically evidence for God because of its beauty. And I think I have my paraphrasing of it here. Yeah, so it says, those who are unaware of God are foolish, and this is my interpretation of it. Those who are unaware of God are foolish. These people view material objects as gods. So, right off the bat, saying that uh, like people who see these material objects, which are beautiful and are unaware of God, are fools. It's like kind of how it starts off. If people thought these objects to be gods because of their beauty, then imagine how much more excellent God is. Or if instead we were struck by these objects, so I guess struck, they mean harmed, or I guess would be a good way of putting this. Maybe like humbled.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. But struck or humbled by these objects, then imagine how much more powerful God is. So essentially, it's just saying that my interpretation is that if people who don't believe in God see these beautiful objects in the world and they fear them or they are entranced by them, then just like imagine how much like better God is, basically. Then it goes on to say, from the beauty and might of these objects, God is seen. For those who seek God through these objects, the blame is less because they make an effort to find him despite being led astray. They were distracted by these objects' beauty. However, these people are still not excused. So that one struck me as kind of interesting because it seems like it's saying that that people who like recognize the beauty in these material objects, and I forgot what the actual phrasing was in the verse. It wasn't object. Object was my interpretation. I think it was like I don't.
I actually did not read the full quotation from the Book of Wisdom, but was it idols, perhaps?
Maybe. Okay. That sounds more like it, yeah. So yeah, I thought that was noteworthy. I put an asterisk by that. And then, however, these people are still not excused. If they succeed in knowledge that they could speculate about the world, how did they not find God quicker? So, to me, the summation of that passage, of those passages, which seems like what the video was trying to say was Aquinas's like philosophy about his 5 ways, is that there is this intrinsic nature in all things beautiful and powerful, that God exists, and that seems to be the main idea. I might just have a really superficial interpretation.
No, I think that's a basic kind of boil down, a basic summary of what he's trying to get at. Yeah.
Yeah. And then my other notes are more so talking about, I think this is getting into his first proof here.
Yeah.
Which,
do we want to say the 5 proofs?
Yeah. So the first one is, which, and I've written this down verbatim from the video. So the first one is order of motion, and so I think that there is a better, deeper phrasing of this that is perhaps not completely accurate in what was mentioned in the video, but in the video it's like order of motion in nature is the first way, and I think it has something to do with like the whole prime mover thing. Yeah. Like all motion is derived from other motion, and so you kind of have a cause and effect.
An unmoved first mover.
Yeah, an unmoved first mover. And this was one of the more interesting points that I noted, because you get in the video, and this could just be a bad example in the video. I had problems with the examples that were given in the video.
Okay.
Because the specific examples were, imagine that you're driving down the highway and all of a sudden you see a big plume of smoke.
Yeah.
And so you see the smoke and you infer that there must be a fire that's causing the smoke. And so the smoke is intrinsically evidence that there is some source that we know is fire.
Mm-hmm.
I have a problem with this because this is not true unless you know what fire is. Because if you've never seen fire before, or if it's an uninvestigatable phenomenon, then I would say that you actually can't infer that it's fire. And I actually noted some other possibilities. You know, nowadays we know that it could be a smoke machine. It could have been a giant object falling and kicking dust up into the air. Just as some examples. But it could have been anything. It could have been like some mystical creature that, you know, exhales black smoke. Just as kind of a way of saying that I don't think that we can infer what it is just from the effect's existence. And then he also gave an example of like viruses. And I thought this was interesting because I think this example actually works against this argument because he said that in the video, you know, there's this idea of an invisible cause, right? So like this fire is the invisible cause. In this case, the pathogen or the parasite or whatever is the invisible cause. And so if you're sick, then you know that it's an effect of some like microbe, but you can't see the microbe. But that's kind of the point because like back in the day, people would have said that, you know, that's the work of evil spirits. Getting sick is the work of evil spirits, or it's a curse, or something supernatural that they would invoke. And we know today now that's not true because we were able to investigate it. So I'm just curious as to did you see the video? Do you remember that?
Yeah. I know exactly. I remember exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah. So I was curious to hear what your thoughts on that would be.
Yeah. I mean, I guess. Yeah, I wrote down. So we got the plume of smoke and the virus. I think so. To preface, like the five proofs are derived from experience. They're logical arguments that are derived from experience and from observation. I did some more look. I can't remember which it is because there's two types of arguments. I've looked into this some more with Aquinas. It's like there's a priori arguments and a posteriori arguments, right? A priori arguments would be like purely logical arguments. So that would be like a priori is like the triangle all triangles have three sides or something. That's an a priori claim or a priori argument.
Okay.
That's like purely logical. It's just based on definitions and like logic. Like all triangles have three sides. That's a statement about truth or about reality that I'm making, which can be proven true because of just pure logic. We don't have to have any sort of experience of the world.
So like a more idealistic realm of Okay.
Or the bachelor was unmarried. Something like that, right? Yeah. It's like, well, what do you mean? Are you sure he was unmarried? It's like, well, yes. I mean, if he was married, he would not be a bachelor or whatever. Yeah. So I could be mistaken, but the logic of the statement is true. And then a posteriori arguments would be arguments from like experience or from just like observation of the world around us. And I can't remember which one Aquinas is claiming that these are, or what people say they are. They would strike me as a posteriori arguments, but I feel like I've heard their a priori arguments before, so I don't know which one that is. But in the video, at least, remember, they said like these are derived from Aquinas looking at the world and saying like, let's all look at the world and see what we can see. And so what I kind of heard in what you were saying was like, you know, so we see the plume of smoke. Well, we might reasonably infer that there probably is some flame or something over there. And there's smoke machines and other things. I didn't think it was a great analogy either. For that reason. But like the mystical phenomenon I'm really interested in because that seems like a route of a very deep skepticism, which I don't hold to. I'm not a skeptic. I would not consider myself a skeptic. I've kind of thought about that and whether or not I want to be a skeptic, and I don't think that is a just a true way to live, because it kind of divorces oneself, in my experience, from reality and from actual observation and tangible intersection with like the world around us.
Well, that's interesting.
So because to then say, well, you don't know it actually is a fire, it could be some mystical phenomenon that you've just never observed before.
Mhm.
To me, that honestly is a bit of a ridiculous claim. It's an epistemological like route of thinking, right? Like how can we know what's really true? And that's where I think the arguments based on experience comes in. That it's based on what we generally experience and see in the world. It's like, well, what if something did move and there was no cause for it to move? Like, I mean, I guess, but there's no like precedent for that in the world anywhere, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah.
And so we're going based off a completely, what would seem to me illogical line of reasoning to disprove an argument, and that just seems like pretty spurious to ground to me. But what would you say to that?
That's interesting. I think for when I brought up like some mystical creature or mystical event causing the smoke, I think what I was probably a bad phrasing. I think what I meant to say was like, if we are unaware of fire, then we can't infer that fire is causing the smoke. So, and that's a realistic scenario because, you know, you could very well imagine prehistoric humans coming across a plume of smoke in a forest somewhere, maybe lightning struck or whatever, and they see this and they're like, "Oh, I have no idea what this is." And I'm sure, like Neanderthals weren't actually thinking about this, but if we were to place ourselves in that situation,
they might see it and be like, "Oh,
yeah,
oh."
yeah."
That was probably their exact live reaction.
Yeah, and I actually would think that that this kind of stuff has actually already happened throughout history. I mean, we have weather events, lightning, rain, that people used to kind of create like Greek gods for in terms of explanation. And so I think that when you see those kinds of events, to infer something without either investigating it or being able to investigate it, I think is where I had issue with. Because, I mean, I would agree with you. If we saw smoke in the distance now, it would be absurd to say, well, you know, it could be a smoke machine or it could be like a unicorn farting. Or whatever. And technically, from our armchairs, we couldn't prove that wrong.
Yeah.
But it would be absurd to assume that those are right or that they could be right.
Yeah.
So I would agree with you on that for sure. That yeah, we have to live our lives through inference and induction and deduction. Like that's kind of the logical tools that we have to go through life. But I think that the skepticism is necessary when we're unable to investigate what the cause of something actually is.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, but I do agree in that, like, I would consider myself a skeptic, but I think there are degrees of skepticism that are commonly, maybe misappropriated, because I think that if you take skepticism to its extreme, then you can start getting into the realm of, like, hard solipsism, which is just questioning absolutely everything. You can't even know that you know or know what you know or know that any logic is true. And then when you get like really down to it, it's like, okay, well, I can't even know that I'm not a brain in a vat, and that you're a figment of my imagination and all this other crazy stuff. So I'm not that kind of skeptic. But I would say that I'm skeptic insofar as I just trust my like sensory faculties and previous experience, but when I encounter something that I have not yet experienced, or that I'm not able to experience the cause of, that's when I start getting into the territory of like, well, I'm not comfortable asserting what the cause of that thing is if I'm unable to investigate it, if that makes sense.
And this would this like kind of apply to as we're talking about like the five ways with this first argument from the argument of motion, it's basically as the argument continues, it's like, so we see, let's go with the smoke analogy, even though we don't really love it. It's like, okay, well, we see the smoke, so there's a fire. Well, something started the fire. Something started the thing that started the fire. Blah, 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 blah. All the way. And eventually you get that the buck just keeps getting passed until eventually it has to stop somewhere. Or perhaps it doesn't have to stop somewhere, in which case we have an infinite regress.
Yeah.
Which is an option. Some people believe in that.
Yeah.
I think
like
that's a bit more of a. Well, Aquinas does not believe in.
Well, doesn't believe in it, but
oh,
it
okay,
can't be
yeah,
impossible.
exactly. Which, and I would say the same thing.
Yeah.
Like we can't, we certainly cannot prove that there is no such thing as an infinite regression. It seems a bit out of our comprehension. Like, what would that even mean? What would that look like?
Yeah. Well, I think
I think that's a bit more of like an Eastern or like a Buddhist perspective on like cosmology or something. Would that be right? Do you know? I don't know, so don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure from what I've learned that is a bit more of like a Buddhist perspective.
and perhaps it is. I think that for me, that's kind of where. I mean, I would actually call that a view that just aligns with my caricature of skepticism, because at that point, again, you could say that the universe is like the plume of smoke, and I'm not familiar with any universe-creating beings, like in the same way that I would be familiar with fire, for example.
I see. I was wondering where you were getting to with like the not familiar with fire. So,
yeah. So, and so if I'm not able to replicate, or test or see, or at least not to my knowledge of any universe creating being. And so for me to be fair to myself, I tell myself that I can't assert knowledge of something that I don't think I have or can have. But that doesn't mean that I'm asserting that I can't or won't have it. And I think that's the idea of, I think they call it new atheism. It's like this idea that, which I think is weird. I just call myself an atheist, but a lot of people have different definitions for it.
Well, new atheism would be like Richard Dawkins and those people, right?
I'm not too familiar with Richard
okay.
Dawkins'. I know that he's an atheist, but I don't know.
I thought that was the name that they claimed for themselves, was the new atheists, but I could be wrong.
Maybe they did. I thought it was a slightly.
Yeah, tell me what you were gonna say.
Yeah, so I mean, technically, I would say that I'm probably like agnostic atheist. That would be like the technical definition. I think that it's kind of redundant because agnosticism is really just like the idea of no knowledge or not having knowledge. So agnosticism can actually be a subset belief of anything. You could be like agnostic Christian about some Christian philosophies. So so I feel like it's kind of redundant because the whole core idea of atheism, at least for me, is just the rejection of the claim that there is a God because there is just no. I'm just not convinced of a God. I have no reasons that I can call upon for me that are convincing of a God. And it's very different from saying that therefore there is no God or therefore there can't be a God. That's very, very different. That's I think they break it up into two camps. There's like weak atheism and strong atheism. Weak atheism would be what I align myself with. Strong atheism is like there's no God.
Yes.
Absolutely. I can prove it. All that kind of stuff. So I think, yeah, for me, that's the kind of camp of skepticism that I fall into is just not being convinced that there is a God. And I mean, I think that that carries problems in of itself in terms of what it sounds like God actually wants, or at least the Christian God, of wanting people to know, well, you know what, that might be a
completely different
topic.
Yeah.
So let me not.
Which is what the video was about that I sent you with Father Gregory Pine and Alex O'Connor.
I did watch some of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I watched some of it too. It was
Yeah,
good.
he's a really cool guy.
Father Gregory Pine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Alex O'Connor's. I was really excited when I saw that.
Yeah, that's a good watch. I'll have to make sure I finish that. So yeah, where were we? Talking about the.
Yeah, we were talking about. We're still in the first movement, but all 5 arguments are very similar.
They are, especially the second one.
And so I'm always curious as to kind of what was going on in Aquinas' mind when he wrote these. Just because like they all seem so similar and they're all just like subsets of one argument, which is basically the first argument. as far as kind of I could tell.
That's
But
what
maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. But it's all basically like look at one thing, it came from somewhere, follow the train back, and eventually you get to a first mover.
Yeah.
Which I do really like this. So he defined God in the beginning of his whole section of the five ways in the Summa Theologica as like the being greater than which none can be conceived. And I actually love that definition for God. That's like my definition for God. Because then that's kind of like an empty category that like most people can get on with, I feel like. Just as a definition. Not as necessarily saying that being exists, but that like, well, actually, I would even say that God necessarily has to exist in that case. I wouldn't go so far necessarily as the ontological argument to say that he must exist because a being that exists is greater than a being that does not exist, so we can't conceive of a being greater than all else that doesn't exist. That's another conversation for another day. But just as a definition, there is one being somewhere that is greater than all others that exist, at least in my mind. Or something somewhere. There's something somewhere that is greater than all. The greatest thing that can be conceived does exist somewhere. It may not be the greatest thing that can be conceived, but the greatest. You know what? I'm confusing myself now. We're gonna move on. I like that definition for God.
I think I kind of, and you said that was also what Aquinas kind of defined.
Yeah, that's, he stated the ontological argument in the beginning of his little section on the existence of God, which is God is a being greater than which none can be conceived. A being who exists is greater than a being that does not exist. Therefore, if we can conceive of a being who that is greater than all others which exist, that does exist, it necessarily must exist. It's a really weird argument, but it's actually kind of a mental trip to like think about and kind of argue with.
Yeah, I mean,
that's the cosmological argument for the ontological argument for the existence of God. Aquinas begins with it, but he does not say that. He doesn't say that that's a proof. He doesn't use that as a proof.
It's like
kind of just as like a definition.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because if you're going to anything that has creative power, I don't see how it could create something that is greater than itself.
Yeah.
It seems like that is kind of what, at least a footnote of what you're saying.
I guess maybe a little bit. So
therefore, God would have to be greater than anything anyone could possibly conceive because we're all children of the universe and the universe is a child of him, and so the hierarchy kind of goes that way.
Yeah. And so basically like having that being that kind of definition set, then like we can just call this big nebulous concept over here the thing greater than which none can be conceived. That is this kind of final stop of the first cause as we like just kind of logically think backwards for the five ways. And so but you were saying how just the same way that like it would be a mysterious and kind of unknowable cause if we didn't know what fire was and we saw smoke on the horizon. So it's the same that we might not be familiar with what a universe creating being is. And so when we see the universe, we can't speculate as to what the cause is, just like we wouldn't expect someone to speculate as to the cause if they didn't know what fire was.
Yeah.
Is that a fair summation of what you
said? And I would even go a step further and say that I'm not even sure I would use universe creating being, because then I feel like you would also... I feel like the default stance should be inferring as little as possible. And so I wouldn't even call it a being in the colloquial sense, I suppose, but more so that there was just some event or something that caused an event, which sparked the universe, if the universe has not just always been eternal. In the same way that if I saw a plume of smoke and I didn't know what fire was, I wouldn't say that, oh, I wonder who caused the smoke. I would be like, I wonder what caused the smoke.
Yeah.
So in that kind of same regard, I think that's kind of how I view like his first way there.
Yeah. You know, this is actually really good because I like this. I like what you're saying actually, and I think I agree that just like as far as just like a cause, we can't necessarily say it's a being. If like so, maybe there was some big unmoved first mover, but maybe that was just somehow mysteriously the Big Bang or whatever. I don't know. Is that kind of what you're saying? Like, why does it need to be a personal being necessarily? Why could it not have just been some random
like some quantum fluctuation
unknowable
or-
event.
Yeah.
That is impersonal and simply a natural occurrence. I think that I think it actually gets a little bit more into the rest of the arguments of the five ways. Because one of them is like argument from goodness. Is that right? That was one of them.
Something like
Or
that.
argument of character, or something like that.
Yeah.
Which I think we're actually starting to bump up against time here, Will, because we gotta head out.
Oh, yeah.
We gotta head out in 10 minutes.
That's right.
Yeah, we got started recording a little bit late, but we have a podcast room now.
I know. We could pause it. Do you want to pick up on this after church? Will you have time after that?
I actually don't. I don't have time the rest of today.
Okay.
But we could like just kind of spend a little bit of time with the five ways and like go through them and talk a little more about them next week and
Yeah, for sure.
kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I really like where we landed today. I think you had some really good stuff to say. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we start to wrap up?
Not that wouldn't like take another 10 minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I have lots and lots of more thoughts. I think it was a really good video. I think that this is a really fun topic, and I love this, like diving into this theology and philosophy. So
Yeah.
I really,
We'll definitely have to actually read the text of the five
Yeah.
ways. It's very short. It's like 2 pages long or something.
Yeah.
If you print it out, and then maybe have that to talk some more about next week.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good stopping point, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
So
Thank you for tuning in to the newly christened Brothers in Armchairs podcast.
yep,
It has a name.
in all of its glory, we actually have armchairs. We are true to the podcast name at last. So thank you guys for tuning in.
See you next week.
See you next week.